Good evening and welcome back to Poe Discussions with Carmen and Jeanie. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith. And we are
the Potastic Two.
Yay, we're getting better.
Yes, we are. We have a very special guest with us, and his name is Wayne O Broin. Did I say that correctly?
O Broin.
Okay, or Burn if it's American. So, yeah. Wayne, take it away. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from Dublin, the capital of Ireland. So, Diagwich to all of your listeners. Great to be here. I'm obviously a fan of not only Poe, but the 6 Degrees. And it's great in the world of the internet to be able to tap in and tune in and listen to all the great work that people are doing, particularly stateside with Poe. Yeah, so I'm just an average Irishman who loves Poe and have up and down the years have dipped in and out of his work from being very young, and then with family and career and stuff. You drift in and out, but yeah, it's been great to look at the works that he's done and kind of maybe add a bit to the jigsaw that he is. So we'll speak about that in a wee while because I'm going to be going on a journey, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
So you can add a piece of a jigsaw to the whole Poe puzzle.
Awesome. And Poe loved cryptograms and puzzles and things, so that just ties totally into Poe. So
yeah, very
cool. Well, since you kind of brought it up of how like you were younger when it sounds like you kind of got connected with Poe. So tell us a little bit about what was your first interaction, like reading Poe or finding out about Poe?
Probably reading and coming across a book, but like many kids, obviously as I'm an adult now and you're delving deep into the craft of acting, but as a kid it doesn't seem that way. Everything is a new experience and you don't really know why you're drawn to something, particularly the horror genre or the macabre. So my introduction aside from books was through the TV.
Okay.
Looking at very old black and white films, looking at we had a show here like in the 80s called the Deadly Ernest show. And what they would do was they'd pick films from the 30s, 40s, 50s, right up to the 70s with the Hammer horror films, but it was all Lugosi and Christopher Lee and Lon Chaney and the list goes on. It was all these cool guys. So on a Friday night, as a kid, we'd sit down and watch, and then obviously, the Roger Corman stuff that would be shown as well, and so this gave great exposure to what Poe was and. Looking at those programs and films back then, they were just something that had drawn you to it. So between that and the area I grew up in, there was an old graveyard beside where we lived, and it had really high walls. And being a kid, we're quite good at climbing, so spent a lot of time in the graveyard. So had a real fascination with Gothic. Things and but when you start seeing them in the movies and then putting them together with your imagination and books and poems, that really sparked it off. So probably like everybody else in the whole film or the whole craft of TV and film and acting and etc. It goes from there. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Wayne, your background, it's
see
like
that behind me, yeah.
Yes,
yeah. And it's like some sort of advert on YouTube. This is a TV behind me, so
very cool.
I hope that doesn't ruin. I hope that doesn't ruin.
Oh no! It's fine. It just we couldn't. We saw was your outline, and so okay. I was gonna let you finish.
Cool.
So yeah, it was kind of cool actually. Nice special effect.
Woohoo!
Well, Jeanie, do you want to ask a question?
Well, you brought up that you are an actor and you did, were interested in, as you said, from a long, early age because of all the different things you watched with the macabre and the Gothic and everything. So I know you're both theater, and is it movies and TV, or is it just kind of theater and movies type of thing?
Yeah, so I mean, between both TV and theatre, I first got involved in theatre at a very young age in primary school, as we would call it in Ireland, and then into my teens with Dublin Youth Theatre, and then from there into TV and film. So that would have been the Gaiety School of Acting here in Dublin and Bow Street Film Academy. And the differences between both, I mean, yes, they're both acting, but the delivery and your awareness of what's in front of you and what's around you very much differ from theatre to film. In theatre, obviously, if you've got an audience of 300 people, you've got to probably overemphasize a bit to reach the top row, as you know. See, the person's paying the same money in row A and row Z, so you got to give the same thing, but you've got to make it bigger and boom it a bit if need be, you know. So finding the balance between that and still getting the nuances of your emotions and your performance versus TV and film, particularly film when the frame could be really tight and it's just a headshot. So you've got to peel everything back, and every micro movement and nuance in your expression is so big. So the flip between theater and film is like a switch. So you've got to do that to obviously, as I said, with theater, there's people in front of you, but for the actor, they don't exist. Same when a TV, you know, on a film set, it's your scene partner, the crew and the camera, they don't exist. But how you deliver is completely different because, as I said, in theory, you've got to, you know, give it all. Whereas in film, this movement is, and when your head is the size of a house on a film screen, it's every little micro. The camera doesn't lie, picks up everything, you know. So
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
that's an interesting quirk that you got to flick on and off when you're whatever you're doing, theater or TV or film, you know.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. It's one of the things that kind of leads into that I wanted to ask. Sorry, Carmen.
Oh no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
It leads into that. I know you have a YouTube channel, which we're going to talk more about that in a little while. But on your YouTube channel, when you're doing your actions and all that, and you're filming it, I know, especially when being in front of the camera, but activating it and being behind it and doing the editing, kind of give us a little bit of idea of some of the things that you use from your TV, movie, you know, even your theater experience that you use into your YouTube videos, and how, you know, it works with who you work with.
Yeah, great, really great question. And I suppose the trick behind that is as an actor and performer, you can get very closed off to what's happening around you, particularly from a crew perspective. But I'm quite a curious animal, and I always like to know what's going on. And you know, even though that won't come into your head per se when you're performing, but having an awareness of what's going on. So I was always curious about that. But when I shoot my post stuff, and whether it be, you know, Oscar Wilde, or whether it be William Allingham or Yeats, or, you know, Patrick Kavanagh, whoever it may be, when I go and shoot those things, I'm on my own. So I've had to build a kit to cater for everything. So everything has got to be wireless. So the camera and the lenses are, you know, I use a 5D Mark IV with 1.2 50 mil, 85 mil, whichever you pick between the lenses. I've got a wireless follow focus. I've got a wireless monitor. I've got a wireless mic. I've got a wireless camera slider. I even got a remote for the camera, and so I can hit record from the lens side. So I don't have to keep running back and forth to make that happen. So I've shown some of my work to some people that they would ask me, "Oh, that looks really great. What crew did you work with on that?" And it's just me.
Yeah.
And that's that's true necessity, you know.
Yes.
It's not, you know, when you're flying solo, kind of like Stephen with the one man Poe, you know, you learn to be self-sufficient, I think what's that wonderful saying? Um, the mother of
the mother
Invention.
invention.
necessity, I think, is something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yes,
It's
yes,
basically,
yes.
it's only when you're forced into a situation where you really delve into what you're capable of, and I think
Hmm.
that's very much a trait for us as a species, that we're able to do that, and find a way to get something done in life, because if you
Yeah,
don't, you stagnate and you don't move on. So that's been interesting to learn how to do that, and
I
I think it's a
bet.
formula that's worked, and why I've done that is I've always looked at some stuff on YouTube and some beautifully well worded readings of Poe, but it's always been imagery of stuff related to the narrative, which
Hmm.
which looks really great. But I kind of said to myself, how do I bring this into the 22nd century?
Hmm.
Um, it being past the 21st, how do I bring it into that? Because I try to imagine what Poe would have done in his day, and for
Hmm.
me, not only was he an amazing writer and an amazing imagination, but he also I believe he had some really good acting ability, because his parents were actors, obviously.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
he traveled. As a kid, I'm sure he traveled. He picked up lots. So in his performances, which they were when he was doing his readings or his recitals in these stately homes and country manors, or whatever it may be, and he had an audience. It was literally a candlelight, because it was before electricity and all of these
Hmm.
things. So I'm pretty certain his performances, even though it was through a room of people, they were very much intimate. So
Yeah.
in my videos, I try and get that across by having a eye contact with the viewer as you're reading it, as
Hmm.
opposed to just imagery plus the audio of a reading.
Hmm.
So, and I
Yeah.
think it's worked. I've had some really good feedback.
Yeah, I think so too. They're captivating with
Hmm.
just you can tell you are trying to engage with whomever is watching,
Yeah, yeah,
and
and that's really tried to do that, and I'm glad to
yeah,
hear you've picked up
yeah,
on that. That's
I've enjoyed it. And so, do we want to take a quick break and show one of your videos? I think this is a great point to do that.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
All
Give me
right.
just a moment to switch over and share my screen. I have it pulled up and ready to go. Give me just a moment.
And this is be a great introduction into people can see, not only the expression that you put into the work, but the
Yes.
amount of work that you put into it. And it gives more credence to Poe hearing it and seeing it and feeling it, because you get all
Mhm.
that from your production. So I really appreciate that.
Cool. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Ramila Mahaga.
Okay, so here we go.
Woohoo.
It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs in heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, that a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that a wind came out of a cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre, there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.
That was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. I love how the ambiance and knowing that you were the only one that was working everything.
Yes.
And the sound effects. I don't know if you actually paid those birds to caw in the background and set all that up, but that was just perfect additions, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of depth to filming that, because obviously the narrative is really important in the shots. So that structure you see, that's I live in Dublin, which is on the east coast. So to reach that location for me is a 3-hour drive, which is 6 hours on the road there and back. And I went there 3 times to scout the location, to check the weather, and just really research why I wanted to pick that place. And if there's anywhere in the world that narrative would fit, it's in this place called Musenden Temple. And it was built by a bishop for his niece. It's actually, well, it was a library. And through the years, the coastal erosion has forced the building just at the cliff's edge. So it looks like a sepulchre by the sea.
Wow.
And so on the cliff's edge, as the last scene that you see with the drone shot looking down, that's like over 100-foot drop. That's,
wow.
If you fall there, you're gone. So I know I shot it just beside that where the stones are. So it had to be there for me, because anywhere else just wouldn't work. So the narrative, when I found that location, it just had to be there for me. So, and I think it fits so well with the narrative. And then the music by Scott Buckley, and then the sound effects, they for me are my fellow characters in the piece.
Yeah.
And they really help bring it alive and put more soul into the performance. So in my head, it transfers from a reading, with some visuals of like pictures, which you would normally see on YouTube. But for me, this one, it's performance, and that's how I deliver those. And that's how I wanted to link back with what Poe would have done in a room full of people back in his timeline, where there would have been a candlelight on a piano, and he would have recited his work with that emotional connection and with that eye contact, and really staring into somebody's eyes when you're delivering. So hence the looking at the camera for the entire, and there's no clever edits in the reading. It's just one straight read. So that for me is very much like theater, because in film you can cut and chop and edit, but in theater you can't drop the ball, and you've got to keep the ball in the air, and the audience, you can't drop the ball, because the audience will see that. In theater you can kind of turn sideways and cover your eyes, but in film there's no escaping the lens. It sees everything. So the entire piece has to be in one shot. And then the drone at the top and tail, they just add in, but the reading or the performance of the poem is just one take, and it has to be that way for me anyway.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of makes sense just because you don't have that interruption. And I think I'm going to use kind of like, one of Poe's terms that he used in some of his, stories. It's like you're mesmerized. And if you have a cut or something where it's like a choppy blend or something like that, it doesn't resonate with the listener or the viewer to the intensity of the piece that you're giving.
Yeah.
And so, that makes perfect sense.
The peaks and troughs of the delivery of the text with that emotional connection. I think the audience, well, I'm hoping that they feel that in the words, with the emotion, and then the music, as I said, it's like another character that you're playing with in the delivery, and how they've come together. It's, for me, it's just it's quite mystic that music just sounds so good with Annabel Lee, and
it does.
The only thing missing for me is Gustav Dor with visuals, but his work is amazing. The stuff he's done with Poe's work as well. It just blows you away. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. It fits very well because of the storytelling aspect of it.
Yes.
Like in theater, when you're trying to connect with the audience, the only thing you have is your emotions and your voice most of the time. Like you were talking about, when those are, those in the same price seats, but at least to the back and far reaches of the theater, you still have to grasp them. And usually you can do that with your voice more than anything. And I think that for me is because, I love the graphic of where you were at. I love the ambiance of being out on the edge of the cliff and all that. But it was like your voice was like speaking to me, like a guitar. When you can hear a song when a guitar is being played, you can hear the music and the words, and it's kind of like that. And you've done such a fabulous job building that. Is what I'm getting to. So,
absolutely.
I think that the tonality and maybe just the voice tones kind of lend to what you're hearing, and I think that perhaps makes it more believable, and that's something which has suited me well with poetry readings, is that the tone and the voice seems to come across quite well. So I'm very happy to have that as part of delivery. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, you truly, you put yourself into the poem as the true speaker, as if those things happen to you with Annabel Lee. Like you become the speaker. You're not just reading it. You have, immersed yourself in it. And that I love it.
Yeah, I think if the audience can kind of feel the pain and the tragedy in your voice, well, then that's the intention of the work.
Absolutely.
But it's also, a confirmation as an actor that you're delivering it the way it should have been, as opposed to just, a cold read from a textbook, which is a different type of delivery. But for me, this is how I see the work would have been done all those years ago. Now we've got the tech that we can bring it to a much wider audience. With film and TV and screen and YouTube, and but back then it was, I'm sure Poe didn't need his book either, or his poems. He had them all in here. So that's what I have to do when I'm delivering, is that I'm not reading from a book. This is, it's a theater background where you learn the text off book and off heart, and then you deliver it with heart.
Yes.
So,
absolutely. And speaking of doing, acting very well, you have won an award for a short film called Podge. Yeah. So if you'd like to talk about that a little bit.
I will. And just before I do, just in regards to Annabel Lee, when I shot Annabel Lee, I was very much fighting against the dying of the light, trying to get it to twilight.
Yes.
And one of the things was, as I was filming, because it's kind of it's not a private place, So there are lots of visitors. So I had to try and find a window where there were no people around, so I could, deliver a clean
Mm-hmm.
take. And people kept coming along, and they were wonderful. And, well, what are you doing with all the camera stuff? And but I met some people. I met some wonderful people from Texas, and
Oh, cool.
they were like, "Oh yeah, we're from Texas." I was like, "Cool." And they obviously knew who Edgar Allan Poe was from school
Yeah.
days. And amazingly enough, when I put Annabel Lee up on the channel, they left a wonderful comment on in the comments. You can check it out.
Oh, cool.
They came back and said, "Oh, we were there when you filmed it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful to see it that it was done." I was like, "Wow!" They remembered, and they
That is
stopped in. So
awesome.
that was
Yeah.
cool. So if you get a chance, if you read the comments on Annabel Lee, you'll see them.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
was that was a great memory to have for me and them. So they said. But
Yeah.
yes, Podge was something I'd done a couple of years ago, and again, it's a macabre type of scenario, but a very lonely it's a tragic story about a lonely mortician who has an obsession with a celebrity, beautiful celebrity in social worlds, and without giving away the plot, through a twist of fate,
Mm-hmm.
they meet each other, and
Ooh.
it just develops into a very macabre scenario. And yeah, look, it's a kind of a bit of a black comedy as well. So if I'm sure if you get a chance, but yeah, I picked up an award in the States in Bedford in Virginia. I
Okay.
picked up Best Actor, and the film won Best Film. And that was a couple of
Awesome.
years back in Virginia. So Laura and her team in Bedford, they were very kind enough to invite me over, and I got to meet some great folks and some great memories. Obviously, picking up the award, but one thing which we wouldn't be used to in Ireland was my hotel room where I was staying. It was in the backdrop of a mountain side behind me, and
Uh-huh.
pitch black. And when I looked out the window, there was fireflies dancing outside my
Oh,
window, and in the distance on the hilltop and the mountaintop, there was a thunder and lightning storm. So that was cool. It was like a
very
bonus.
poetic.
Yeah, it was just a bonus. They were dancing in the moonlight, and then the thunder and lightning in the background. That was pretty cool. So
Wow.
yeah, and then I picked up another award for Podge in Spook Screen horror festival here in Ireland, in Cork. And
Okay.
the guys there, again, another great bunch of guys with Emmett, Stephen, Paul, and Philip. They run a festival down there, and got to meet the wonderful Carolyn Munro of the horror genre, with the Hammer horror films. She was at the festival. Got to meet her,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then at the award ceremony where I picked up the award for Best Actor, the Hubbards, Ross and John Hubbard, were there. They cast Lord of the Rings. So
Neat. Oh, very
yeah,
cool.
really cool, and very humbled and honored to have won the awards for Podge. And the director, Rebecca Singleton, wonderful director. She's gone on to do some work on with Mandalorian. Um,
Okay.
so
Ooh.
she's a wonderful director from Ballyfermot College there here in Dublin. And then
Mm-hmm.
my co-star in the piece as well, Aisling Goodwin, fantastic actress as well. So one thing I love about my country and about the talent in Ireland, we've got wonderful actresses, actors, crew. It's just a wash with talent, and I'm just happy to be amongst them, and getting to do what I love doing in that
Mm-hmm.
space. So yeah, Podge has been great, and it was a fun one to do. So I'm sure when you get a chance to check it out, it'll
Yes.
be a bit
Yeah.
of a surprise. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was great.
I like when films, books, all those things have a little bit of a twist. It just makes it, even, I don't know, it hooks you in even more. So
Yeah, yeah,
very cool. Can't wait to
yeah.
see it.
Yes.
Enjoy.
Jeanie?
Well, that leads us into the next question that I have personally is
Mm-hmm.
out of all the wonderful things that you've done, both in theater from early times till recently, what was the one thing about it that caused you to love what you do the most? You know, what
Yeah.
about it is your main love that keeps you there, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, my background is theatre, and I suppose the differences between both. Um, the thrill you get seeing the finished product up on screen is great.
Mm-hmm.
It's really rewarding as an artist, and to see reactions from audiences, and when they see it. But there's just something about theatre that when you're in a space and you've got 300 people in front of you, and you're delivering a piece, and you're going through the throes of emotion right in front of them. I done a theatre piece a couple of years ago with another very cool group of people, and a great director, Jer Ronan, and Nicole Bannon Butler, and Claire, Jer's daughter. It was a tenement piece about the tenements in Dublin, written by Kathleen Doyle back in the 60s when she was a kid. Very deprived area of Dublin. The tenements, if you know what they are,
Yeah.
dilapidated structures, but they moved to a new location. And because Ireland's obviously a very Catholic country,
Mm-hmm.
we done a piece where there was a lot of infantile mortality. Kids died very young, very much in their infancy. So one of the pieces that we done in the scenes was uh, one of the children was stillborn, tragically, and
Oh.
and in Ireland in that time, there was a lot of that, as I said. But the concept of purgatory was very much a thing. And if somebody was to take their own life, or if they had died and they weren't baptized, they were committed to purgatory,
Mm-hmm.
or limbo, if you will, if
Yeah.
that's what it was called. So there was a lot of families and women who had to deal with that anguish and that from a mental perspective. So the point I was getting to was when we ran the piece, it was the first time we'd done this particular scene,
Mm-hmm.
and it's heart-wrenching because the father has to go and explain to his wife that he's got to take the child off on his bicycle to the graveyard, but to bury the child in what was known as the angel's plot, which is where infants went when they weren't baptized. So then to have to break it to her that she won't go to heaven, she has to go to limbo or to purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
So a good friend of mine, Steve, was in the audience on that particular night, and this really got me in the heart. He said behind him there was a row of elderly ladies. Might have been a ladies group, and they were all silver haired, fantastic group, and
Mm-hmm.
he was kind of sitting there with his partner and his kids, and he was watching the scene, and it's quite a heart wrenching scene. You could hear a pin drop type thing, and as he looked behind them, they were all lurched over each other in tears, and
Oh, wow.
because that was their generation.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they knew exactly what it was like in those times. And our sound guy came up to me at the interval, and he punched me in the arm. He said, "Man, I wasn't ready for that," because he was up doing the mixing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
he said he hadn't seen the scene run either, and so he broke into tears as well. So when you see that and you have that reaction from a group of people that you don't know, that's very rewarding. That the emotion can come across from a performance to an
Yeah.
audience. So that's something that and nearly every one of the shows we did for that particular play, at the end of the show you get to meet and greet some of the people that come along, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it was, but there was always a lovely sweet old lady that would come up at the end of each show, and she'd say, you took me right back to those times, and some good
Wow.
memories, some bad memories,
Gosh.
but you can have all the critics in the world, but when somebody tells you that who's lived in that space,
Mm-hmm.
that's you can't beat that. That's just amazing feedback, So that's very rewarding as an actor to be able
Yeah.
to reach somebody like that.
Absolutely. That authenticity of
Yeah.
making that connection.
And the
Yeah.
play was called What Would Ma Say? So
Okay.
Yeah.
that was the piece. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like I'm almost getting teary-eyed just thinking about just the way you described it and everything. It
yeah,
just, oh,
Oh, and it
yeah,
is a poetic in its own right. Because, when you
yeah,
think about um, having that connection with your audience, or giving them something that they may have not realized they needed.
yeah.
And that's kind of the way I feel. And we're going to take this back to Poe. This is kind of how the way I feel when I read some of Poe's either poetry or short stories, because
Hmm.
I feel like he's talking to me through the
yeah,
story.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you're
yeah.
reliving something that you're like, I can't believe somebody felt the same thing I feel, or
yeah.
as acknowledging something like that. So it's good to know that there is those times, like you said, with all the critics and with all the criticism of everybody else, it's always good to be validated by someone coming up and just saying thank you, or
Yeah.
not even using those words, but just giving you acknowledgement that they felt something that
Yeah.
you did.
Well,
And
it's almost like that they realize and they understand when they thought they were actually alone, they
mhm,
weren't. People felt
okay.
this way. They weren't
Yeah.
alone. There was others that were going through the same thing. And you know what was crushing for me and why I felt that particular piece in the play was so important. It was that what only seems like a couple of years back, but I'm sure it's more, that the church recently came out and said that purgatory doesn't exist.
Yes.
So forever
Hmm.
and a day, all those people, all those mothers, those young women, um, who had to live their life right up to their last breath,
Yeah.
understanding that the child that was taken from them all those years ago hadn't gone to heaven, that they were in limbo, and then for the church just to say, that doesn't exist,
Hmm.
and
Yeah. That
your heart really goes out to families who went through that period of trying to
absolutely.
deal with that. Not just. I mean, if it's bad enough that they were taken from them, in life, but then to be told that because they weren't baptized, they're going to limbo or purgatory,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that's like another life sentence for them to carry to their end of days. So yeah, very
Yeah.
very powerful.
Oh, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching, most
It,
definitely.
yeah,
yeah, yeah. But
it
definitely
really
the Poe's
is.
work, like how it connects with you, and
Hmm.
particularly for younger people who might be going through struggles, and perhaps from a mental perspective, that when they read Poe's work, it does speak to them. And
Hmm.
you know when I'm delivering my piece to camera, I do try and get that eye contact, so you're looking directly at them, and bringing Poe's work, and his words to life by making that connection. That's
Hmm.
that, like, as a custodian of that, because it's Poe's work. I'm just, the media in which that's coming through, with the visuals, the tonality, the music, etc.,
Hmm.
etc. So for you guys to, say to me of how you feel about that work through, um, the pieces that I do, that's so gratifying, and I'm very thankful for that. So,
Hmm.
Guramila Mahagut for that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
thank you.
you do beautiful work, and kind of linking it into some of the people that we've talked to. There are several that have said, I've been in a, darker place, or, going through things, not necessarily like dark and, dreary as, with Poe, but they went to Poe and read some of his works, and it kind of resonated with them to kind of almost jumpstart some things for them in their career. And he's one of those, because of things that he went through his entire life. I think we all can go to him at different times in our life, happy or sad, and read something that speaks to us and really make another connection, or read it from a different perspective and get more
Mhm.
out of it than we did the first time we read it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah. And like each time you do read Poe's work, sometimes
yeah,
you find something different,
yeah,
um, and something makes more sense to you, or perhaps it's how you're feeling at that particular point.
yes,
Mhm.
And you read it one day and you feel this way, and you read it the next day and you know, it might bring you to tears, or so again, the peaks and troughs are of our emotions through his work, be it someone who's 70 years of age or somebody who's 12 or 13 years of age. I just think his work has transcended time.
Yes.
And that's, you know, I take a lot of inspiration from Poe to be able to deliver that, but also in writing as well. He's such an inspiration, you know.
Well, I was going to say, since you brought up your writing, do you want to tell us a little bit about the poetry that you write?
Yeah, so I don't know how it happens, or when it's going to happen, but it just happens. And when it does, you're just compelled to grab a pen and start writing something down. So there can be different triggers to those things. I can't say what they are or when they are. They just happen, and you just start writing, and before you know it. And I won't go into you know, the realms that it's kind of a trance or anything like that. It's not. It's just, oh, you know, it just hits you, and then you start writing, and you come out of that, then there's the piece, you know. So I've been lucky enough to be able to capture some of those moments without drifting back off to sleep, or, you know, going off and doing something else. So yeah, I've been lucky enough to do that, because I know a lot of people do kind of get caught in that one, where they had a great idea and then, you know, it just disappears, you know, whether that be 2 or 3 in the morning or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I know it's happened to me. I hate to say it, but it has.
Yeah. In fact, I had a couple. I had one idea for a short story yesterday, based on something I was watching on TV, and I do a keep on my phone. It's Google Keep, and I recorded that little idea down. And then something came to me for a poem, and I forgot to write it down. And I'm hoping I can remember it later today or tomorrow. I'm still going through my head, going, what was it that came to mind? And so, yeah, been there, done that, and
Yeah, you've got to seize the day on those ones, because
yes, they
can be
go quickly.
real moments of flashes of, you know, fantasy or genius or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you gotta strike while the iron is hot, you know.
Absolutely.
This leads into what I would like to ask about with Poe, because as Carmen said, this was very a Poe-esque poem, and it gives me the vibes of some types of mythology about, you know, the moon and wanting to be a part of that. But Poe has ancestry. Let's just say it. He has ancestry in Ireland. I mean, come on. I have Kiss Me, I Was Irish Poe there. So everybody should know that Poe has some ancestry. But as you told us earlier before we got on the interview with your bio and your write-ups and stuff, that you actually are close to some of Poe's ancestry. Could you talk a little bit about that and where you might be going with that in the future, so everybody can know?
Yeah, do you mean geographically or like mystically, or both?
Both.
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Both, definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay, so
both.
I'll give you some background to how it's kind of a weird twist of faith, perhaps, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
So my second name is Byrne, and then the Gaelic pronunciation of that is O Broin, O Broin, O Brian, or O Broin. Some people, you know, pronounce it differently, but it's O Broin. So it sounds like a V, but it's a B. It's kind of silent. But O Broin, in Gaelic means raven. So
very
it's
nice.
kind of
That is so cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool, and I've 3 sons, and 2 of them, my firstborn, his name is Keen, CI for the AN, and so his name in Irish is Keen O'Brien, but in its translation in English, is Ancient Raven, like in the poem, the Raven. And then my middle son, Killian, Killian means war, so his name is War Raven. So
that's so neat.
It's a bit of a quirk of connection with 6 degrees of Poe, really, isn't it? You know,
exactly.
connections. You know, and I've got just to show you how deep mythology is with ravens in Ireland. So
Oh,
this statue
wow.
here, okay, this
Uh-huh.
is a mythological it's our version of Achilles, and
Okay.
his name is Cuchulainn, and you can see just on his shoulder there's a
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
now the story of how Cuchulainn died was he fought a massive army, one man versus an army, and how he uh, how he ended was, and this statue, this is what it's about. When when he lashed himself to a rock to stay standing, he had actually passed away, but the army wouldn't approach in fear that he would kill them, and the only way they knew that he had died was when the raven landed on his shoulder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Oh, that's giving me chills. That's
yeah,
so
so
cool.
that was the indicator that the goddess of of war, the Morrigan or Bab, there's a couple of them, they're in a
Yeah.
triplicate. So when the raven landed on his shoulder, that gave them the cue that now we can approach him, and now we know that he has passed away. So
Okay.
yeah, Cuchulainn. So that's very old Irish mythology. So we're all about the ravens in Ireland. We love
Yes.
them, but Poe, from a geographical perspective. So I don't live too far from where Bram Stoker, lived, and where he
Mm-hmm.
was born in Clontarf. But Dring up in Cavan, which is it's about an hour or so away from where I live. That's where Poe's people come from. So
Mm-hmm.
Poe's great great grandfather would have come from there, as would have been his great grandfather, and then they moved. So I'm on a I'm on a bit of a journey now. I want to find where his people were buried, where they rest.
Okay.
Um, so that's and why I'm doing that is that there's been so much cool work done stateside, with yourselves and what you do,
Mm-hmm.
With Mark Redfield, and with the amazing work he's done, and Mark,
Mm-hmm.
I hope Mark is in good stead. I hope he's keeping very well. Jeff Jerome, in Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
Chris Sempner in Richmond, and I've met so many cool people over the last wee while. David Flamboris with his wonderful collection of Poe books and
Mm-hmm.
memorabilia, and Stephen Smith across in the UK, and
Yeah.
um, it's just I want to do a bit, because there's been so much done stateside that if I could add that piece of jigsaw to what Poe is and where he came from, that I want to do that. So I'm going to try and find in Cavan and in Dring where his people are buried, and when I do find them, I'm going to do Spirits of the Dead gravesite.
Wow.
So that's one
Oh, that will be
that's one that I
amazing.
want to do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
that would be amazing.
that'd be that would be an honor to link those
Mm-hmm.
to Poe across in the States and into America, because all those people I've mentioned, and look, there's many more of them stateside. I mean, Carmen, and
Mm-hmm.
Vincent Price, and all these
Oh, yeah.
cool, amazing people, even up into modern times with Mike Flanagan, and Tim Burton, and all
Mm-hmm.
these guys. They're just incredibly talented people, and they're shooting
Yeah.
Wednesday here as well. Second season of Wednesday.
Nice.
So, yeah, so that's being shot here. So let's see
That's
what that
cool.
brings. Yeah,
Oh, very cool. And I know we've said this before, but like everybody in the Poe community is just welcoming and want to share with each other, and just making sure that we keep Poe alive for,
yeah,
it's forevermore,
yeah,
not nevermore.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And it's so awesome that everybody wants to do their part in keeping Poe alive.
yeah. Well, that's he's given us so much. So
Hmm.
to keep him alive through the work in whatever media that takes, whether it be on stage, whether it be up on
Yeah.
YouTube, whether it be podcasts, it's all designed, and it's all welcome to preserve what he's given us through the centuries. I mean,
Yeah.
what we're giving is a blip on the clock, versus what he's given us through time, and
Yeah.
to try and keep that alive. And ironically enough, what we're doing is obviously using technology, we do want kids to pick up books more and read more, and
Mm-hmm.
and if we can use that media of YouTube or the internet to revert them back to the book, because
Mm-hmm.
it's all, the kids nowadays, it's all about their screens and their
Oh,
laptops
yes.
and their tablets and their phones. So we can use that to our advantage to bring them back to reading a book and setting their own imaginations on fire from what they're reading and bring them through an emotional roller coaster of what they're reading. I think it would be fantastic. But so let's use that. Let's continue to use that.
I agree. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that you said earlier about when you did like go scouting for your location for Annabel Lee and using the technology that you did with Poe's connection to science and loving all of the, new ideas and inventions that
You might have done the same.
yes, I
Yeah.
think Poe would totally be into technology today if he
Yeah.
was alive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the ones I've done so far with Annabel Lee, that was obviously up the north, hours and hours away.
Mm-hmm.
I done a dream within a dream on the cliff sides of Port Ran, which is not too far from where I live here in Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
And then I done it alone. I shot alone in a mirror with a candle about 4 feet from where I'm sitting.
Wow.
And again, using different techniques and with the sound effects and the music, it adds another layer to a character. And
Mm-hmm.
and if that meant years ago that Poe's reading something by candlelight and there
Mhm.
just happened to be a storm outside, I'm sure he used that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
trees against the howling wind, and that probably
Mm-hmm.
added so much to delivery in wherever he may have been. So that I
Absolutely.
try and get that in my head and go, yeah, do you know what? He would, this is what he would have done, and it would have been magical. So
Yeah.
trying to emulate that is, it's not easy, but it just shows you what you can do if you put your mind to it. Particularly if you have a passion for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's basically real life imagery. I mean, coming
Mhm.
to life using all the
Yeah.
five senses.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Oh, and absolutely, and with those five, and then with your emotional intelligence, you can
Mm-hmm.
you can make that connection with them, particularly when you're when you're looking at somebody and you're hearing somebody deliver a narrative with that emotion, as opposed to just a cold read of a textbook.
Yeah.
It can be very different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to try and get some more done. So obviously, Spirits of the Dead is one that I want to do, and the Raven, I'd like to do that.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of more I had in my head that I would like to try and bring to bring to the screen, or bring to camera, or maybe on stage. I'd love to do Morella. I think is another cool one.
Oh, yeah. That's a
Um,
great story.
yeah,
Mhm.
so I think the Raven, on stage, much like what Stephen has done and many
Mm-hmm.
before him, maybe Morella and a couple of others to kind of build to build a performance on theatre, because I'd like to go stateside sometime and maybe
Mm-hmm.
maybe deliver some of that and soak up some of that rich Polness that you guys have over there, that would be
Yeah. Oh, yes.
We would love for you
awesome.
to come on over. We would be
Yes.
right there for you.
We would,
Yeah,
we
Be like,
would, and something to think about. The International Edgar Allan Poe Fest is in October
yeah,
in Baltimore, right outside his house, and it's an amazing festival, and it's growing and growing every year.
yeah,
I have been every year that they've had it, and even COVID when it was virtual, I watched
yeah.
it on that,
It
and so
looks like it looks great, and
it is.
I've often said to people that I've been reaching out to and I've been speaking with,
Yeah,
I curse the Atlantic Ocean because it separates me from you guys, so
yeah.
but
well,
someday
I have
I'll
to say I'm right there with you because I curse the Atlantic Ocean because that's what's between me and going to Ireland.
mm,
Yes,
So,
yeah,
yes, yes,
you
yes.
know,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, I love traveling by boat, so I would love to cruise there.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think that would be
not apt
amazing.
to flying anywhere, but
Yeah.
every time I
Well,
think of taking a boat, I'm like, I don't want to revisit the Titanic. So, we'll go in there
Yeah.
sometime
oh,
eventually.
Later in the year with with what you guys would know as Halloween,
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
obviously to Ireland where Halloween has come from,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
it's called Samhain.
Yes.
That's where it originated. So instead of pumpkins, because we didn't have pumpkins in Ireland, we would have used turnips. And then
Okay.
when Halloween traveled with, or when Samhain traveled with the Irish to America, they didn't have turnips, so they used pumpkins. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but in that time frame of the year, with the celebration of Samhain, we have a lot of festivals and a lot of things happening around. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a Bram Stoker festival
Ooh,
Ooh.
in around that time as well. So
okay.
I might try and get something going for Poe as well, because
Okay.
obviously they've got a shared Irish lineage and roots. So
Mm-hmm.
I think to maybe bring them together as a force of reckoning between Gothic works between Poe and Bram Stoker would be pretty cool,
Oh man,
Absolutely.
Jeanie, we will definitely have to make
Yeah.
sure we get there.
Exactly. One way or the other, we will make it.
Yeah.
Yes, even
So,
by
and,
boat.
Well,
By
when you do, give me a call and I
all
will
right.
be your guide and
that would be
Awesome.
amazing. That would be amazing. Same here.
Yes.
Because
Give us a call.
yeah, definitely. Well, one of the questions we always ask everyone that we talk with is, what is your favorite Poe story and or poem? You may have one of each or just one.
Yeah, it's a tough one because there's so many, which
I
you guys
know.
very well know. It's such a hard one to pick from. I could say The Raven because
Yeah. Connection.
it's such a great piece, but also and again looking at it from a performance or an actor's point of view.
Mhm,
2 or 3 minutes of a monologue has its pros and cons. It's got its challenges.
mhm.
But
Mhm.
for the Raven, which is like 12 minutes of
Yeah.
the monologue, so to run that through for 12 minutes of a singular performer, is it's a mammoth task, particularly to try and keep an audience's attention without dropping the ball. So from an
Mhm.
actor's point of view, that's a very cool one. It gets the salivation glands going.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
monster, and you want to, it's terrifying, but it's so enticing as well. So the Raven is up there for me, but um, I like the mystique of Spirits of the Dead as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm waiting for the right day to do that one, and there's a particular reason. So when I do get around to it, you will see the reason why. So
Okay.
I mean, I could go out and do it tomorrow, but it's things have to be
Not
just
ready.
right. So there's one ingredient that I need to have, and until I have it,
Mhm.
I'm not going to do it. So
Yeah.
uh,
Oh,
have to
It's
wait.
worth waiting for,
Oh yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But for me, like, and to finish up on speaking about the poems that I do to camera, what kind of sells the piece as well, is the production values. So the
yes.
music, the sound effects, the frame,
Mhm.
the camera positioning, they're all production values that without them, I don't think it would be as appealing as it appears to be, because the
Mhm.
feedback has been really good, and that's very much encourages me to go on and do more. And
Yeah.
if that helps, you know, if that helps new people finding Poe, great.
Mhm.
If it
Yes.
helps people who have forgotten about Poe, great. Or if it's someone who knows Poe really well and they see this as a different delivery and it adds something new, because we're always envious of new people who discover this for the first time, because you don't have that because you're aware of it.
Yeah.
So when I see new people finding posts, like, wow, this is great. I would love to be where they are. So because we already know what Poe is and what he does. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
brilliant. So yeah, it's difficult. I think the Raven. Yeah, I think the Raven.
Okay.
I think I'll go with the Raven.
Well, and with your family connection, that makes
Yeah,
so much sense. I think Jeanie
it
was
does.
saying that a minute
Yeah.
ago.
Oh yeah.
Connection.
Yeah, and it's almost like, Poe's went from Ireland to America, and
Mhm.
my second name is of Raven. So if I
Yes.
get to the States to do Poe, I'm almost like a raven stalking Poe
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
across the sea.
Yes. Oh, that's so cool.
I mean, it fits so perfectly. And just so everybody can know, if they don't already, your YouTube channel is Irish Poetry by Candlelight, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they can find all your current videos, whether it be Edgar Allan Poe, whether it be you reading Yeats, right?
Yates, yeah. With
Yeah,
W.B.
Yeats.
Yates, yeah.
I don't know why I said Yeats. Sorry,
It's okay.
Yates. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's like what? Okay, that poor. I guess because he's not one of my favorites, but I do like him. It's just I don't ever worry about it.
Yeah,
But
I like
anyway,
him.
so anybody that can find you on YouTube needs to look for Irish Poetry by Candlelight, and I'm assuming when you get around to your spirits of the dead and all those other plans that you have for the future, we can find those there.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
I'll post them up there, and I'm sure they'll find their way around the different platforms. But yeah, it's a bit of it's paying it back to Poe for giving us such treasures and such comfort in times where we feel it's only me feeling this way, when it's not. It's the human condition. We have
Yeah.
good times and bad times, and it can get us through that by, ironically enough, he's got a poem called Alone. But
Yes.
yeah, it just tells you that you're not the only one who feels this way, and you're not alone, if you will. So yeah, it's been such an honor to be able to bring his work onto those platforms, and I'm going to try and keep doing it as long as I can. I don't know how long that's going to be for. Tomorrow's promised to nobody, so
Yeah.
Exactly.
hopefully I can keep going forward and doing
Yeah.
that, because it's great. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, that's kind of
Wonderful.
how Jeanie and I feel about the podcast, as we like to call it.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
going to do it as long as we possibly can, and grow it as much as we can too, with the ability to do it. So,
yeah. Well, it's very enjoyable, and it's
thank
wonderful
you.
to chill out on an evening and just sit back and put on the earphones and listen to you guys speak to all your fantastic guests who bring so much of Poe to life, and the different
Mhm.
stories, and yeah, and hopefully the discussion we've had today will fit somewhere in along that timeline.
Absolutely, yes,
Yep.
and we will be airing this episode on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
Patrick's Day,
So,
yes. Yeah.
yes,
Well, that'll be pretty cool to, on such a day of celebration, of it's kind of gone beyond Patrick,
Oh yeah.
although it's called St. Patrick's Day. It's very much a celebration of Ireland and everything that Ireland
Mhm.
has and is, and
yeah,
what the Irish have brought to the planet and the world. And
yeah,
so yeah, it's for me, it's a day of celebration of Irishness beyond
Yeah.
St.
hmm
Patrick.
yeah,
Yeah, and also what the Ireland has brought to the United States, and the
yes,
Irish influence in the United States, and
Mhm.
how connected we are, whether it be the country of Ireland now and us now, but knowing that we have that history together, and there's
Yes,
still a celebration of it. And so that's wonderful, wonderful things to think about.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
such an influence from a very small island off the very wild edge of Europe, to have
hmm
had such an influence on such a country as the United States,
Mhm.
right from Samhain or Halloween
Yes.
to St. Patrick's Day or Ireland Day. It's great to see the celebrations. We love seeing TV clips of the river in Chicago going green, and
Oh yeah.
Boston Celtics, and it's everywhere. And our reach and our persona and our personalities have traveled far and wide because we are a nation of warrior poets, as it would have said,
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And we thank you very much for being a part of our podcast. And we can't wait to see more of your work. I know I can't. So
I am anxious to see more of it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. In my mother's tongue, it would be Gura Mila Mahagut, Makara, and Ihawach.
Oh,
so that's
thank you.
Irish.
That's
thank you very much, and good night.
Yeah. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us. And so, Jeanie, are you ready?
I'm ready. We are.
Ho out.
You're almost there. You're almost there.
Glum.